it. And we're not going to stop him. Also not going to stop him. Ash Hanley finishes it off.
Jack Bird with his first Leeds try.
No games in the Betfred Super League come much bigger than this. It is first against second in round 22 at the DIY Kitchen Stadium, and this is Matchday Live, bringing you all the news, all the insight, all the expert knowledge ahead of LEEDS RHINOS taking on Wakefield Trinity. They've met each other twice this year, once in the league and once in the cup. What will we see? We saw a big blowout win here at AMT Headingley for the Rhinos, but will Wakefield manage to muster up the same kind of result they got last year at the DIY Kitchen Stadium? That big drop goal from Mason Leno. Will they get something similar? But we can definitely say there will be drama. There will absolutely be 100% drama in this game. Nothing really comes close to when Leeds take on Wakefield, and two Yorkshire sides battling out at the top of the Super League table. We can't wait to see what's coming up. I'm your host, Dan Hawkhead, and I'm pleased as always to be joined by BBC Radio Leeds' Jack Conlon. Jack, no games come much bigger than this. I don't know how many times I could say that. But these two teams are really in form at the minute. Wakefield especially in form. What you expected from these two sides today?
It's huge, isn't it, this game? It's so highly anticipated. We were talking in our offices this week just about this game, and we can't really recall the last time we had two West Yorkshire sides that were first and second going into a game like this, especially at this time of the season where we're in the running. You know, the playoffs are only 6 or so weeks away. Everything is starting to hot up, and you've got a match like this, like you say, between two sides that are well in form, that have without a doubt been amongst those outstanding sides in Super League in 2026. So yeah, it's such an intriguing contest, such an exciting game. It's going to be a sellout as well, which I think in itself just tells you, how big this one is. I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be such a spectacle, such an event.
It's a real surprise when we think back to those first few episodes talking about what we saw this league going to be like this year. I don't think we kind of saw Wakefield being as high as they are, but it's a real testament to Darryl Powell's work there, isn't it? That they're able to sort of be one of those stellar sides, and especially be on the run of form they are at the minute. Seven consecutive wins. You don't do that very easily, do you?
And only one loss in their last 11 as well. So they are on such a good run. They are just such a dependable side. They're a very, very Darryl Powell side. I mean, you think back to what Cass were like in 2017, and when they went on that run, they just backed everything they did. They played with such a confidence, and that just is Wakefield. The rise they've had as well, the rapid rise since coming back into Super League on the back of last year, where they probably turned some heads with their performances. The fact they got into the top 6 in itself was such an achievement, and one that people thought, right, well, that's probably their season now. Coming into this year, I think they certain people probably tried to temper expectations, being like, they've had that one year back in where momentum has taken them as high as it has. They'll probably fade back down again this year, but they've just gone from strength to strength, and that's both on and off the field. They are doing it right at Wakefield with Matt Ellis's investment. He's working his magic off the field. Darryl Powell and his coaching staff and everyone involved in that operation are working their magic on the field, and everything is just coming together, and they just look like a brilliant outfit and a brilliant club at the minute.
It's a real testament to the work that Matt Ellis has done over the last 3 years, isn't it? You go down to the DIY Kitchen Stadium like you will tonight, and it's now a great place to go, and a tough place to go at the same time, isn't it?
Very much so, yeah. They've only lost once there since round 1. Obviously beaten by Toulouse back then, but only Wigan have beaten them there. So yeah, it's a really, really tough place to go. They've made that a fortress, just like Leeds have here at Headingley. It's two sides that have really honed that home advantage this year. Again, how much that will play into this game, how much of an extra little boost that'll give Wakefield, and how much pressure that'll put on Leeds, we'll wait and see. It's not always the way that things play out, isn't that? But Wakefield obviously will back themselves at home as they have done all season, with that crowd behind them. But equally, Leeds will go into it with the degree of confidence as well, because why wouldn't they? Again, given the form they're in, what they're like when they are on top form. We saw against Toulouse last week. It was a pretty comprehensive win in the end.
Yes.
They obviously kept Toulouse to 0 as well, which was a big tick in the box. And Brad Arthur said after that game that it was probably their closest to an 80-minute performance they've had all season, which is certainly a good thing and a step in the right direction given the period of the season that we're in and that we're going into now. So yeah, Leeds will absolutely back themselves, but as will Wakefield. It is such a tough one to call.
As we said on Matchday Live, nice to see the players listening that they've managed to put in that 80-minute performance. But there's so many comparisons to draw, isn't there, between both sides at the minute? Wakefield on their 7-game winning streak. Leeds also did a 7-game winning streak. There's so many comparisons in how they play as well. Like, Wakefield have really stepped up this year with a couple of minor adjustments and a couple of little additions. Darrell's kept the same kind of team that got promoted back in 24. You look at, we'll come on to some of these in a moment. You look at the core of their squad, and it doesn't look flashy and fancy, but it gets the job done, and that's what wins you games. And fair play to him.
I think they're well drilled and they're instinctive as well. And I think those are two comparisons you can draw with Wakefield and Leeds. I think you often see some of the better teams, or certainly some of the more entertaining teams, when they're going forward with the ball, their second phase play is so important, and I think that's the same for Leeds and Wakefield. And teams that do that well and play well off the second phase are often the ones that when an offload does come in, they almost just slip into shape instantly. You see Leeds straight away. As soon as an offload comes in, eyes are up. Where's Jake Connor? Where's Brodie Croft? Where are those players that we can chuck the ball to that know how to make things happen straight away? And Wakefield are very similar like that with Truman, with Josh Rourke, the way he's playing this season. They do slip into shape, and then everyone around those key players, those orchestrators, just knows exactly where to be and what to do at those times. And it often comes off for both Leeds and Wakefield. So I think that's one real similarity that you can draw between these two sides, is just that ability to slip into shape and play on instinct, and that I think is partly why they've both been so successful this year.
Do you think as well, judging part of these 7 wins at the minute, they're obviously racking up the wins, do you think they've got a little bit about Leeds that, we've said in past shows that we feel like Leeds haven't maybe done that full 80 minutes. Like you said, Brad really honed in on that. We think Toulouse was there. Do you think Wakefield have done have been a little bit the same in that they managed to chalk up the wins, but maybe it's still been building at points?
Probably, and I think you'd probably say that for any of the top 6 sides. I don't think anyone's really hit their peak yet, which is again why it's so interesting going into this final 6 or so games, and then that run into the playoffs. So I think there's room for improvement probably across the board, which again is a scary thing to say given some of the quality we've seen from Leeds, from Wakefield, from Wigan as well, who are now starting to trend in the right direction too. So I think so. It's all about when teams do peak, isn't it? And when they start to really hit the straps. And I think it could well come down to that playoff experience and that big game experience when we get to that point, and who really takes hold of those situations. Now, who knows, that could work against Wakefield. They were in the playoffs last season, as were Leeds, of course. We all know what happened here against St Helens. Yes. Wigan obviously got to the final as well. So there's teams there that were all in the mix last year. Will they have learnt from those experiences? Will they change anything about the way they go about the business in this last period? We'll have to see. But yeah, I think there's still. I think if you asked any of the coaches, they would say there is still more to come from us. And you have not seen the best of us this season, and they will be saving that or aiming to save that until when it really matters.
Arguably exactly what you want with 5 rounds of the Super League season to go. Like Jack said, a sellout today at the DIY Kitchen Stadium. If you've been lucky enough to get a ticket, hope you enjoy the game for the starters. But it's going to be getting the fans behind them, getting the atmosphere there is something that we've seen both here and when you think back to the Challenge Cup game. Once Wakefield were on top of the game, the Wakefield fans get on top of you. They really do. Much like the Rhinos fans do here, and the South Stand gets on top of you and Leeds rack up 40 points. Which of those games do you think we might see today? More of the sort of gritty Wakefield grind out a win, or if Leeds do hit the straps and get really going like we know they can do, that can really blow out the score? Which do you sort of see at this early in the week and this point pre-game. Where do you see us going in this game?
I think it'll be tight. I really do think it'll be tight.
A drop goal tight?
I was literally about to say, I think back to the game you mentioned at the start of the show, the 15-14 Wakefield win last year, Mason Lino in the last minutes, kicking that drop goal, and that game just had so much about it, that could have swung either way in those latter stages. So I think it could be very similar. Which way it will go, I'm not sure, but I don't think you'll see either side really blow the other one off the park. I really don't. I think it will be quite tight and gritty. Points will be at a premium. I think it'll be that sort of game. Where neither side will give the other an inch defensively. So I expect it to be that sort of game and that sort of tight contest. I think even if Leeds get a couple of scores in front, you still wouldn't write off Wakefield, because again, with that crowd at their back and in that arena, they know exactly how to play it. But equally on the flip side, you'd never write off Leeds in those sorts of situations, either chasing a game. So yeah, like I say, it's such a tough one to call. It really, really is. I'm not a betting man. And I wouldn't put money on either side for this, because it genuinely could go either way. But that is what we hope, is that it's a tight contest and an entertainment one as well.
We absolutely hope that. And the squad news this week presented just how tight this game could be, because there's some big names coming back, especially for the Rhinos. We'll come on to those in a minute. Just one change for Wakefield, Jack. We saw Lachlan Walmsley coming in for Jordan Williams. Basically means that Darryl Powell likely is going to go. Not same again, but there's still players in that 21 to pick from. We'll start with Walmsley. Do you see him coming into the team today, or do you think they'll go with Myers on the wing?
Again, it's such a tough call. I think Darryl Powell knows who he likes if everyone's fit in those positions. Ollie Pratt aside, obviously he's not in at the minute, but
such a big miss as well.
He is very much so. I think Walmsley probably comes back in if he's fully fit, which I think he is. So that is what I'd expect on that right hand side. It's probably harsh on Jaden Myers because he didn't do too bad a job last week, but just so is the nature of rugby league. Sometimes we saw Will Tate play really well for Wakefield in that left centre spot. He's now out of the side because Corey Hall's come back in. So I think Darryl Powell, like I said, knows who he likes in those positions, preferably. So I think Walmsley comes back in for them.
See if he brings out an Uno reverse card like he did last weekend. The other one in the forwards, not as an addition, but one that we potentially see the rotation, Mike McMeekin. You'd expect these kind of games, Darryl's going to look for his sort of not heritage players, but the guys he can really rest and be sure about. Mike McMeekin is one of those. Do you see him coming back in today?
That, again, it's a tough one.
Because Trey Lalessio's been playing well as well.
He has, but I think Mike McMeekin just brings them something so much different and just adds so much more. Now, I think he picked up a back issue a couple of weeks ago, and he was in the 21 for their game last week at Catalans, didn't play, and is in the 21 again this week. I think that is deliberate. I think that's just keeping him on ice, not risking him if he's not 100% against Catalans, and readying him for this one. I do think they'll have had an eye on this game when approaching that subject with Mike McMeekin and whether or not to play him against Catalans. So I don't see a player that is that influential, even if he is 80-90% fit, I don't see him missing this game, because he just gives them so much through the middle in terms of that punch and that drive. The leadership as well can't be understated. He is arguably been one of their best players in this last couple of seasons. Was one of their first signings when they knew they were coming back up to Super League. I think they earmarked him from early on as being one of the real leaders in the side, and that is absolutely the case. So I expect him to play.
I would also expect him to play. Likewise, another question just in the half, but I think we were talking about this pre-show. Jack Sinfield obviously came back into the side last week for that win against Catalans. Do you see him remaining in that spot? Do you see them potentially working the spine a little bit more? Because Max Jowett's available, and we know what threat he can pose, but Josh Rourke will come on to him a little bit shortly. Do you see him potentially going at the halves, or do you see Jack sticking around with Jacob Truman?
I think it'll be Jack Sinfield. I think it'll be Truman,
taking on his former club.
Absolutely. I think it will be those two, and I think it'll be Rourke at fullback. I don't see any reason for them to change that, because I think that is very much their bread and butter this season. Mason Lino, when he's fit, adds another option, another dilemma there. But I think given who is available, I don't think they'll deviate from what they did last week, and I don't see a reason to do that. I think Jowett has found himself in the unfortunate position of just being the sort of extra man this year. Josh Rourke's played him out of that fullback spot. He dropped in the halves a couple of weeks back when Sinfield wasn't available. So he's got that versatility which works in his favour somewhat. But yeah, he's had an unfortunate season as Max Jowett because he's just been just due to the form of the other players in his positions. He's just not found himself in the squad as much. So, fair play to Josh Rourke, to Sinfield, to Truman. They've been excellent, and I don't see that changing.
Fantastic. And just like for Leeds, they've had 2 changes coming up for this one. The team news is dropping up below us. Ash Hanley and Ryan Hall coming back in. The experienced guys are back in for the big game, with Ned McCormack dropping out due to injury, Jack, and Jeremiah McTauty also dropping out. Do you see both of those coming back in? Do you see just Ash slotting in? Alfie Edgell, as the club put out this week, Alfie Edgell is back fully available. He obviously dropped out late last week against Toulouse. Do you see both of those guys coming back in? Do you see Ryan Hall potentially going on a wing?
On the basis of what Brad Arthur said this week, I think Ryan Hall misses out, and I think he'll probably be back the week after. Ash Handley, by all accounts, should be back in, which I think is a massive, massive inclusion. He's arguably been Super League's best centre this season, and he's such a threat down that left edge with his pace, with his agility, but also, again, somewhat similar to McMeekin, albeit in a different way, his leadership. I don't think you can understate that either, so I think he'll be back in that left centre spot. And then more than likely Edgell. For me, it's between Edgell and Lum. Edgell's probably the preference if he's fully fit. I think it was a tight hamstring that kept him out of last week that was just picked up in training. So again, whether or not that's just Brad Arthur would rather keep him and have him fully ready to go this week as opposed to putting him out there against Toulouse 90% fit last week. That might have been the thinking, but yeah, for me it is those 2 changes. Handley in the left centre, and Edgell probably on that left wing spot. So otherwise, I don't see any other deviation from what they did against Toulouse last week, which also as well includes Zach Lloyd on the bench, which I think is in itself a great story. I thought he was really good when he came on. Slotted into that right second rower spot, gave James McDonnell a 20-minute rest at the end, and he looked the part. He really did. I think he had the body shape to match whatever Toulouse threw at him. He's a big body.
He is, isn't he? Like I said last week, I told you, for 18, he's a big guy, isn't he?
And I think his first carry as well, where he took, I think, 2 or 3 defenders with him for an extra 5 or so yards, post-contact meters was a really good introduction. So, I mean, that in itself, like I say, is a nice little story just to add into it. If he does make the bench, which I think would be great. I seem to remember, last season against Wakefield, in that 15-14 game, Presley Cassell made, I'm not sure if it was his first start, but he started in the front row. I seem to remember it was when Leeds were going through a bit of an injury patch with forwards. So he was a young player that stepped up this time last year. Zach Lloyd this time comes in, you'd imagine, and we'll keep his bench spot this time around. So there's lots of interesting little foibles when it comes to those 2 lineups and what they may well look like. But in terms of the changes, I think it will be those 2 for Leeds on that left edge.
You don't see Tom Nicholson-Watt potentially coming in, only looking at having looked at more of the Wakefield pack, I think, than I have from when you've obviously worked on games for BBC Radio Leeds this year. Do you not think there needs to be maybe another power prop in there? Is it one that you can throw yes, Zach was that. I'm not going back on saying Zach wasn't impressive last week against Toulouse, but when you've got Caleb Hamlin-Uela, you've got a Vanganay, you've got those bigger bodies. Looking at how he played earlier in the year, is there little things with maybe is the pack an area where Leeds could potentially look to change just to try and combat what Wakefield are going to bring at them, knowing what we've known about them this year?
It's a fair shout, and I think Tom Nicholson-Watt certainly. He's in that 21, isn't he? He's certainly in the conversation. I think if there was to be another change, it would probably be him or Zach Lloyd. That's probably the other dilemma there. But I think when you've chucked a kid in like that last week, different sort of game, obviously going into this one, and he's seemingly come out really well from it. In terms of what people think, I thought his interview as well post match last week was really good. He speaks really well. He seems a confident kid. I don't see a reason why you'd take him out of that firing line. Challenge him to step up. Against, like you say, what is a formidable Wakefield pack. So I think he probably keeps his place, but if there was to be any other little change, it probably would be that.
Let's get straight into it, because it is a big pack. We'll get on to our key players. Obviously, big games like this have really key players, and we've gone overboard a little bit on who we picked out from Wakefield, not because it's necessary, but because there are so many key cogs to how Daryl Pal's side work. Starting with the pack, because I think it's a real good segue looking at how Leeds are going to combat that. Two of their key ones this year have been Isaiah Vanganar and Caleb Hamlin-Uele. Both those guys come real hand in hand in what they provide this team with, most of which is post-contact meters, a stat in which they lead.
They're so good, and I think they're two fantastic examples of Wakefield's recruitment and what they've got right. In the past couple of years, they were both signed in the Championship as Championship players. Vanganer came a bit later, I think. Hamlin-Uele, came at the start of pre-season, but they were both relative unknowns, other than probably surname. Caleb having his brother who plays over in the NRL and had done for a couple of years already, when that signing was made, and then obviously Isaiah Vanganer, courtesy of his dad, as well. So, that's probably, to a degree, what most people knew about them, and they've just excelled. They've gone from strength to strength. Not only have they established themselves as Super League players, making that step up from the Championship, but they are now arguably amongst the best players in their positions in the league. Hamlin-Uele, I'd be stunned if he's not part of the England squad, given that he's eligible and he's been named in the performance squad for the World Cup. I'd be stunned if he's not part of that, because again, he's just such a weapon off the bench.
What is it about him? Just what qualities about him really making him that weapon that you talk about?
It's just a punch through the middle. I think the way they use him is really clever, and Fartili's relatively similar. And when they bring him on, they get him on midway through a first half to run at tight forwards and really dominate that middle area. And I think Wakefield's pack works because of that level of intensity that never seems to drop, no matter who they go with. They start McMeekin and Rodwell most of the time, and bring on Hamlin-Uele and Fartili as your options off the bench, who are just different players, but it's almost like McMeekin and Rodwell, who probably aren't as powerful as those two off the bench, but they sort of set the standard, set the platform, work Wakefield into the game. Once everyone is then warmed up and moving, that's when they bring on those two impact subs and try and dominate that middle area of the field, and it's worked so well for them. Not just this season, but last season. Similarly in the Championship, on that dominant run they had. I think I remember watching Hamlin-Uele at York for Wakefield when they were in the Championship, and it might have been his first try in England, actually. But again, he looked like a play. He looked like a player with potential, but needed to grow a bit and needed to sort of mature. He still looked a bit like a kid at the time, but has since just gone from strength to strength, and now, as we mentioned, is one of the best props in the league.
He's absolutely stellar performance. He's got 5 tries now into his name this year, but it's the work he gets through, not just I feel like we're echoing what we've talked in recent weeks, but it's that attack and defence. He's second in tackles. He leads the club in metres and carries it. Honestly, really great work.
Relentless player.
Relentless is a great word. Vanganar on the edge. His offload game seems to be the thing that, when watching clips about him, that he seems to be able to get the ball out. He's a bigger body. He's not quite like his dad in terms of who was a power prop, but he still has those little qualities that are really threatening out on an edge, much like a James McDonald.
Very much so, yeah. Powerful player, runs hard lines, and knows how to do so too. Physical specimen too, as well. He's got the height, he's got that ranginess, and I think he too has built out into his body as well, which again is a progression that we've seen in the past couple of seasons. I think it says it all that they've signed him to a new 5-year deal. That just shows you what they make to him and what they think of him as part of that side. He's clearly key for them, and I think, like I say, those stats and the way that he plays week in, week out speak for itself. So they sort of mirrored each other in terms of their progression and their growth as part of this Wakefield side, and are now amongst the best in their positions in the league. And what assets for Wakefield, and what sort of example as well for, I guess, future players at Wakefield and players that they're trying to attract. Look what we've done with these two. They're now amongst the best in the league where they play. Come to us. It's a great selling point and an example of what Wakefield have done right.
When you look at the stars that are coming in, especially for next year, you've led by Tuivasa-Sheck, it's hard to not look away from that. It's really great to see that they're also a club like ourselves here at Leeds who've really delved into the reserves grades of the Queensland Cups and New South Wales Cups and really finding some absolute gems. It's fantastic. We've mentioned him already, but it's tough to not look at key players for Wakefield and not mention Jake Truman. This is the Jake Truman I think that we were all hoping for that would come to fruition. We saw it a little bit at Cass during his early years there. But this has been a real point in his career. He's in great form, and another in the England conversation, surely.
Without a doubt, and if he does miss out on an England spot, it's just because of those that are playing better than him, and you know that position is almost so saturated now with options.
Jake Connor maybe.
Jake Connor been a great example. Harry Smith, Mikey Lewis. There's so many you can throw in there, but he's certainly in the. Probably if there's 5 or 6 players, he's certainly in that conversation. He just looks like a player that is so confident at the minute, and I think that's been the big difference. He's not playing thinking about potentially re-aggravating an injury. He's not playing with any pressure on his shoulders, seemingly, despite the fact he's leading a Wakefield side who are second in the league. There just seems to be a trust there from Daryl Powell in him, and a confidence about Jake Truman that just allows him to play the game that he plays naturally. Like you say, we saw it at Castleford. That's up until this year is probably his best period when he came through at Cass. Well, obviously came through at Bradford, but Cass signed him and had him in their squad for a good chunk of time. But yeah, he's really hitting his straps now, and it's good to see, because he's always a player that's had that promise and had that potential. It's just been about unlocking it, and it seems like now he's got a bit about him that. Like I say, he's probably not thinking about injuries, because of the run that he's had now. He's had almost a full season essentially, injury-free, just playing his game, and he seems all the better for it. He just, like I said earlier on, he's one of those players that when there is that second phase in particular, yes, he just keeps them moving and keeps them ticking along, but when they find themselves in those opportunities, usually on the second phase, where they can really hit a team hard, he's the kind of player they look for to make that key pass, or to move the ball in the right direction, or to the right area of the field to exploit that space. He's just been brilliant for them.
I don't think it's a surprise that he's got 25 try assists this year because of picking those passes and being able to get the direct ball. Such a strong ball runner as well. Like when you look at the sort of lines he hits, he really does go for them, doesn't he? When
he's a nuggety player as well, actually.
Yes.
Like you say, yeah, it's a very good point, that actually. Just the fact there's that bravery now as well, and I think that sort of comes hand in hand with that confidence and just being able to back himself and not have any sort of fear of injury or anything like that. He can just take the ball in if he fancies it, and like you say, he's got a deceptive strength when he's in the contact. So yeah, no, it's a very good point that actually, his running game is another facet that has really come on this year.
And Tyson Smoothie, I think, has helped both him and whether it's been Jackson Field, Mason Lino in that sort of halves partnership, not sticking around. He's off the reports that he's going to Perth and next year, but has seemingly found there was a few question marks at the start of his sort of Wakefield tenure. His big name coming over, won an NRL Grand Final with Brisbane. He now seems to have found that confidence. How have you seen him develop, having seen him in the last sort of over the course of the season? How have you seen his role develop? Have you seen him sort of develop any little facets that have really now working for Wakefield?
I think his kicking game is a big one. I think Daryl Powell himself said that the kicking game surprised him, and it wasn't until a few weeks back that he sort of said, "Oh, I can kick." Daryl Powell went, "Well, why didn't you tell me that months ago?" But yeah, I think he started pretty steady this year. His early performances weren't bad by any stretch, but they were just probably middling. He wasn't having the real impact that people possibly hoped he would do. But that's completely changed in the past couple of months, and he's just turned into this dependable 9 that just seems to have it all. His running game has really come on leaps and bounds. His distribution's great. Like I said, his kicking game, he's not afraid to dart out and put his boot through the ball. He's played a bit of scrum half now and again this year, just in a couple of games where he's needed. Yeah. And again, he's looked fine in that position too. He's clearly a natural rugby league player and a natural, pivot. No matter where you put him, he thrives in those situations. So yeah, again, just a real weapon for Wakefield up the middle with what he offers in attack and defence. They've obviously got the rotation option as well of Harvey Smith,
your favourite,
who is just brilliant as a player as well. I think he's. I think when Smoothie goes at the end of the year, they've got Mason Teague coming in. Yes. But I'd be surprised if Harvey Smith doesn't get that number 9 shirt and he's sort of seen as that starting hooker, with Teague just supplementing him off the bench. So they've got 2 fantastic options there. But yeah, Smoothie is different level now than what we saw, I think, at the start of the season. Will be a shame that he goes back for Wakefield without a doubt, and it's slightly sort of taints the the performances that he's putting in now, knowing that he won't be there. But I mean, what a story it'd be if he could lead them to a grand final or help lead them to a grand final in his sole season here. You know, goes down as a cult hero if he does that, arguably. So yeah, he's a fantastic player, and one that again is just part of that Wakefield formation. He's a cog in the wheel. And I think that's one thing that's interesting about Wakefield. Yes, we've pointed out a good handful of key players, but they've probably been the best team in Super League this season. And when I say that, yes, Leeds are top, obviously, but there's no one player that you'd really pick out at Wakefield that is an absolute standout. You know, you look at any other team, I mean, even Leeds, Jake Connie, you'd probably say, has led the way. Ash Handley's led the way. For Wakefield, everyone seems to just sort of pull equally and in the right direction, and that was part of the conversation, actually, when the most recent Man of Steel panel came together, in that there was no Wakefield player in that top 10.
Of course.
But that is probably because there's no one that stands out. You know, they are
because they're all pulling for each other, aren't they?
Exactly, they are the definition of a team. You know, that's not to knock your Leeds, your Wigans, etc. But I think that was really telling. You know, when they came together and had that panel, and there was no Wakefield player involved. I think that just shows, you know, what Wakefield are, what their values are, and what they rely on.
And just to wrap this up, it'd be tough to not mention, after talking about them, obviously not having, or potentially having Lachlan Walmsley back today, Ali Pratt being there, Tom Johnston has just had a Tom Johnston style season, hasn't he? 16 tries in all competitions. What do we expect from him? And hopefully a World Cup England international at the end of the year. Fingers crossed. If he keeps up this form, he just absolutely deserves it, because he, not just by the try line, it's really, I'm sort of implementing this in that it's not just his try scoring ability that's so impressive, it's all the work he does back by his own try line. It's the way he carries the ball that teams just struggle to deal with, and I think he's caught Leeds out with it a few times, not just this year but in previous years too.
Another physical specimen. You know, he's so strong and so big as an athlete, and another one that's benefiting a bit similar to Truman from having just a clear run of games. You know, we know what issues he's had in the past, Johnson, when it's come to his knee, and you know, he's had those long spells out, and it's been gutting for him because you know, he's a local player. He's a Leeds lad. I'll be playing for Wakefield.
Down at Stanley.
Yeah, and you know, when he's in full flight, there's no one that quite gallops like Tom Johnson does when he's away. He finishes unbelievably. You know, he's probably one of the best you know, in the league at that sort of squeezing his body into ridiculous sort of formations to just touch that ball down in the corner with no space to work in. You know, so yeah, he's such a good player, isn't Tom Johnson? Like you say, probably will have a place on the plane to the World Cup. If not, then he's certainly pushing. He's certainly in that conversation. I think the battle between him and likely Harry Newman will be really interesting. Newman obviously not a winger by trade, but you know, needs most really with those that are out. Thought he looked good against Toulouse last week.
Up against two tough wingers as well, which we highlighted on the show. So he did do a decent job, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think Brad Arthur himself said that you know, he sees certain aspects of Harry's game that suits that position. So I think coming up against Tom Johnson is a different sort of battle. So let's just see how that goes. But yeah, he's an excellent player, isn't he, Johnson? And he's undoubtedly a threat in just about any sense. If the ball's passed out to him, if it's in the air, etc. You know, he's going to cause you some problems.
He absolutely is, and Harry Newman, like we've said, has to be on his A game defensively if he's going to have to stop the threat that Tom Johnston poses. Now, onto our head-to-head, and two players that very much provide for their outside backs, whether it was Mike Acevo, not going to be today, but definitely Johnston will be for either Harry Newman, will it be for Ash Handley. We look at our full-back room, and it's Josh Rourke up against Lockie Miller, should I say. Two absolute stellar fullbacks in this competition. No wonder that they're riding high with their team's performances. Let's start with Leeds and look at Lockie. Since coming back, obviously had that little spell with a little ban, but has still been arguably one of Leeds' best players this year. Again in the Man of Steel conversation, Jack, but hasn't quite appeared when it's been these games against Wakefield. Is that a potential where he needs to up his game this week?
Yes and no. You know, I don't think that's a specific Wakefield thing. I think that's just a Lockie Miller thing, maybe. You know, we know what he's like when he's on it. He's electric at the back. You know, again, one of those players that, like I mentioned earlier, if an offload comes in, he's one of the ones that everybody looks for. It's either Connor, Croft or Miller. Just get the ball in their hands and see what they can do. We know how evasive he can be if he's running laterally, just trying to find those gaps to dig into and create something from. He's been brilliant since he came back from the ban. And again, he's another player that if Leeds are to achieve what they want to achieve this year, is going to be vital to that. So again, he's another player that I think as well they've done really well to keep fit this season. You often see with explosive players like that. I mean, you take the example of Wigan this year, who've had periods where Field and French have both been out. They're all of a relatively similar mould in that they're those explosive athletes that have got that acceleration and often when it is like that, the conditioning around those sorts of players has to be stellar, just simply for what their body demands from them to play the way they do. But Miller has been able to stay fit all season, which I think has been a real benefit. I wonder how much that 3-game ban maybe played into that. Just keeping him on ice for a couple of weeks. So we know what he brings to this Leeds side, and he comes up against a Wakefield fullback who's perhaps caught people by surprise this year with his performances.
Josh Rourke is the man you are on about. Josh Rourke, obviously best known for his time coming through at London. Funny enough, Jamie Langley said on the LEEDS RHINOS podcast this week that when he was down in London, Mike Eccles instantly earmarked Josh and said, "We've got a player on our hands here. This is a player for the future." We've just seen it was a great pickup when Wakefield signed him in 2025. We've just seen it again go to another level this year, like you said earlier about him keeping MATCHDAY out the side, isn't he?
Fascinating journey as well. Josh Rourke came through at Salford. I think played 1, maybe 2 games for them a few years back now. Was part of a crop that would just sort of, I think, chucked him for a game. I can't remember when it was now. It was maybe before a semi-final or something like that, and they chucked out a lot of their reserves players, and he just happened to be one of them. Goes to Whitehaven then, has a fantastic season. Then I think he's snapped up he's signed by Batley before London step in and then sign him. I think was the story there, and that is how he ended up in the capital, and was outstanding for London during their year in Super League there. Really worked his way into the side and looked really tidy. Alas, Wakefield then picked him up and he's worked his way in to be their starting fullback. And so like I say, a fascinating journey to get to where he is now. But playing some outstanding rugby league. I think when we look at these two fullbacks, what's quite interesting is I think there's a fair chance that they will be in close proximity quite a bit, particularly on the last tackle, because one of Wakefield's pet plays is their high kick for Josh Rourke to chase through. He is so good in the air. The way that he times his leap and just the height he gets on those jumps as well whenever he's challenging a player. So many times he just rises above his opposite number and gets to the ball first and goes over the top of them, and he's just got a confidence about him, no fear. Chucking his body into these scenarios, and it's worked so often for Wakefield as that. Equally, we know Lockie Miller likes to chase down a high kick as well, so he too will be looking to put Rourke under pressure, you'd imagine, on those last players for Leeds. So that's one area where I think we can watch with a degree of intrigue, is what happens on those last player kicks, and just how much each set of half-backs are trying to pepper the opposition full-back to try and get their own full-back through and make it a difficult contest, make it a bit awkward. But Rourke certainly is one of the best proponents of that in the league when it comes to challenging for those high balls and just getting himself in exactly the right position at exactly the right time.
Both like a line break as well, but I don't think it's a great point. I know especially on the Leeds point of view, we've done this throughout the whole season. This is a game where halfbacks are really going to dominate, and you're looking at the combinations and you've gone, well, Leeds is settled. Miller, Croft and Connor just run the show for Leeds now. It's almost like clockwork. Wakefield have had a couple of changes, judging whether Jack Sinfield's been in, whether it's been Lino, whether it's been Miles Lawford. But still, these are the kind of games where if you have step up, you will more than likely get a result, isn't it? And just finding those, whether it's going back to your pet players, whether it's coming up with a little bit of magic, they're the kind of things that are going to win you these games, especially when it's going to be as tight as you're predicting. And
games like this can often just fall in a key moment, and that does happen at times. And I think both teams have got players that can produce those. I mean, Leeds, Jake Connor's probably number one. A couple of weeks back, kicks that 40-20, that 20-20 again, whatever you want to call it.
20-20.
That turns a game, does that? because psychologically, again, I don't think you can underestimate what that does to an opposition who think they've gone through a defensive set really well, have pinned an opposition in, then all of a sudden find themselves off the back of one kick, one masterful bit of play from one player, find themselves defending on their own line. Psychologically, that must knock you for six. Yeah. That all that hard work undone by one piece of magic by a player.
That he does so easy as well.
He does, yeah, he does. He's got such a boot on him, and it's so nonchalant in the way that he goes about it. He's the kind of player that can break this sort of game open. Equally, Wakefield they'd probably say they've got Jake Truman to do similar, or a Smoothie, or a Rourke, or someone like that. So there's players on either side that are capable of producing those moments. And I think in a game like this, that is what it often comes down to. And it's like, it's not always a try either. Like I say, that 40-20, or a try-saving tackle.
Or a drop goal.
Or a drop goal. Just one piece of magic that players on both sides are capable of, that can break this game up. And that I think is what it will come down to.
This will be a game of moments and a game of big plays. We cannot wait for this one. Whether you're going down to a sold-out DIY Kitchen Stadium, we'll look forward to seeing you down there. But as not everyone could get a ticket for this one, Jack. It was absolutely hot off the market. Wakefield were absolutely packing it out as we'd expect. The only way to watch, of course, is on Sky Sports. We're on the Sky Sports Action and Sky Sports Plus channels today, which means, of course, we're not on Super League Plus, but get to your local pub, get round to your mate's house, and get this one on the TV, because this is box office Friday night viewing, and the game of round 22. No game really comes close. Looking at what we've got coming up, of course. So if you're out and about, if you're travelling around, we know it's the school holidays time. The best place to listen is with our great friends at BBC Radio Leeds. Jack, you've got full match commentary?
We have, yeah. Myself doing this game alongside former Super League halfback Matt Moxon. So me and Mocko, your commentary team for that. It'll be on all BBC Radio Leeds frequencies and on BBC Sounds as well. Coverage starts at 7 for us.
Jack's going to be darting very quickly down to Wakefield, and you can listen to him and the team. Don't miss a moment. These are the kind of games that we absolutely live for in the Betfred Super League. This is the kind of game. Could we be seen be a grand final rematch? We will not say that just yet. Well, I've been Dan Hawkhead. Thank you very much for your company. My thanks to Jack Conlon, as always, for his expert insights. And team news for you, the crucial team news of what Brad Arthur's picked, is coming next.